I just want to say before I begin how delighted I am to see the faces of so many students here. We are all here on this platform in the loft because of you and our belief and faith in the church. I'm also honored to look down and see Jim Heidinger, the President Emeritus of Good News, and Ira Galloway, one of our trustees, and Samuel Kimalason, great saints of God. I'm honored by your presence here today. Thank you very much. In April of 1739, John Wesley was preaching in an upstairs room in London. About halfway through his sermon, the supporting post, which held the floor from the room down below, gave way and collapsed under the sheer weight of the people who had gathered in that upper room to hear John Wesley preach. Wesley remarked in his journal that the supporting post fell with a great noise. The floor sunk, but it didn't cave in. And to Wesley's own amazement, everyone settled back down to hear the rest of the sermon. What do we do when it seems like the floor under our feet is giving away? Many of the traditional props and supports which have long given stability to the work of theological education have fallen away with a great crash. What are we to do? How are we to live in a time of disequilibrium and of change? Never in history has the church simultaneously gone through such dramatic growth and decline in so many parts of the world so quickly. When William Carey went to India in 1793, 99% of all Christians in the world were white and lived in the Western world. Today, the vast majority of Christians live outside the Western world. We are witnessing the emergence of multiple centers of Christian vibrancy, even as we see the Western world re-emerging as one of the fastest growing mission fields in the world. The top 10 most resistant people groups in the world are now all located in Western Europe. And remarkably, the top 10 most receptive people groups in the world are all located in either India or China. We live in an upside-down world. Christianity Today reported a few years ago that 85% of the members of the Yale University's Campus Crusade for Christ chapter are Asian, where the university's Buddhist meditation meetings are almost exclusively attended by whites. The World Christian Encyclopedia records that there are more Anglican Christians worshiping in Nigeria in a given week than all of the Episcopal and Anglican churches in Western Europe and North America combined. An examination of world Christian trends reveals there are now more evangelical Christians in Nepal than in Spain. The historic William Carey Memorial Church in Leicester, England, is now a Hindu temple, while the church in India, the traditional home of Hinduism, sends out 41,000 cross-cultural missionaries, a movement I've given 21 years of my life to support and encourage. China can now boast of the fastest growing church in the world of any country, 16,500 new Chinese Christians every day. Africa, once called the missionary graveyard, can now boast the fastest growing church of any continent as a whole, between 22 and 24,000 Christians every day since 1970. The most representative Christian in 1909 was a 44-year-old British male. The most representative Christian in 2009 is a 24-year-old Nigerian woman. The support post upon which was written, "You are the center of the ecclesiastical universe," has collapsed. And we have to regain our footing in this new world we inhabit and think afresh about what this means for theological education in North America as well as around the world. None of these developments were predicted 50 years ago. And yet today, as I survey the landscape of theological education and ecclesiology in the Western world, it is clear that we are living in a time of unprecedented crisis. I don't say this to alarm you. I am only reminded of that wonderful comment made by the great Dutch theologian Hendrik Kramer, who once said, "The church is always in a state of crisis. Its greatest shortcoming is it's only occasionally aware of it." The floor is creaking beneath our feet. The supporting post has fallen. What does this mean for Asbury Theological Seminary in the 21st century? I would like to make 3 observations. First, we must embrace cultural and theological translatability. We must understand afresh the profound translatability of the Christian message. Christianity is the only religion, only major world religion, whose primary source documents are in a language other than the founder. In other words, the New Testament texts are not in Aramaic, but in Koine Greek, a truth that your new students will soon find out if you don't already know. This is unique among world religions. Muhammad spoke in Arabic, and the Quran is in Arabic. The Brahmin priest of Hinduism, who gave us in the Vedas, Upanishads, spoke Sanskrit. These texts are in Sanskrit. However, in the New Testament, Jesus speaks primarily in Aramaic, but the primary documents which record those sayings come to us in Koine Greek. Now, this makes a vital theological statement which contrasts dramatically with, for example, the Muslims, our Muslim friends, who argue that the Quran is untranslatable and can only be encountered in Arabic. At the very outset of the Christian message, the translatability of the gospel is enshrined in our very documents. Now, you would under-realize this point if you thought, as most do, that this only gives us the green light to translate the Bible into every known tongue in the world. That is to say, linguistic translatability. It is, of course, that. But it is much more than that. It's also the translatability of culture. Indeed, this is the larger point, which is the reason why the New Testament comes to us not in Aramaic, but in Koine Greek. In the book of Acts itself, we are witnessing the massive cultural translation between a gospel firmly rooted in a predominantly Jewish historical and cultural context to one which begins to be received and heard and transmitted into people from the Gentile world. The first Christians were full-blooded Jews by faith, culture, and experience. But they chose under God to not absolutize that culture or that heritage, and they chose not to insist that it be normative for all future believers. That's what Acts 15 teaches us. And so we realize that in the gospel we're seeing this cultural translation going on. This is a great model for us as we now pass and cross more cultural frontiers than any time in the history of the church. This cultural translatability has profound implications for every discipline taught in this school. Just a few words about theology, for example. Theology can no longer assume that all the questions that could possibly be asked have been asked and posed to the biblical text. As new cultures in non-Christian and multi-religious contexts come at the text from outside the walls of historic Christendom, they are also becoming eager readers of the Bible. And I can promise you from my experience, they are posing many new questions which have not been previously asked. This is an exciting day to be hammering away in God's theological workshop. The global church will, for example, continue to insist that theology become more closely aligned with ethics in a way we have not seen since the patristic era. Theology will become more missiological in a way we've not seen since Thomas Aquinas' Summa Contra Gentiles or Jonathan Edwards' humble attempt. Theology will become more ecumenical without losing sight of the kerygma in a way we've not seen since the Carolingian commentaries. This is because theology in our day will become simultaneously more diverse and more global, while at the same time become more fully orthodox and centered on the kerygma.